Want to extend a big congratulations. You won re-election last week. Republicans will have control of the House, the Senate, and obviously the White House with Donald Trump's comeback victory. What's your reaction to these wins? What's your main takeaways from this election?
Well, especially in my race, speaking to Florida 13, they were doing the same thing to me that they did to Trump. They were releasing poll suppressions. They said I wasn't going to win it. It was a toss-up. I ended up winning by double digits. So it was a massive landslide. And as you're seeing with President Trump, my messaging, his messaging were very in line with one another. The issues affecting economy, border security, these are all things that people are voting on. They don't care about a lot of the issues that the Democrats are bringing up. I think that it just goes to show that the Democrat Party has increasingly become out of touch with working Americans. And that's exactly why so many people, so many minorities, so many women shifted largely to the Republican Party platform. Kudos to President Trump. So very, very historic win for the president. As you know, he won the popular vote. He's now going to be in the White House. We have the juggernaut, meaning we have the House and the Senate. And I'm very confident that my seat will stay red.
There have been many postmortems in the past week or so since the election, but one thing is a common theme, a common thread throughout, is that the economy remained the top issue for voters. And I'm just curious, how will you work in the next term to lower prices for voters, for all Americans, and to have them feel like the economy is working for them once again?
I think the number one thing we're going to have to do is get back to the policies under President Trump. If you notice the 2016 economy versus the 2020 and now 2024 economy, President Trump really opened up American energy independence. He cut through regulation, allowed us to actually tap into our natural resources. Obviously, there are people that care about the environment. We want to do it responsibly, but make no mistake, when we outsource it and buy products from foreign countries, they're not exactly adhering to environmental standards. And so the best way to do that is really buy home, buy American goods. And then secondly, I would say that, President Trump is a massive fan of tariffs. And I actually, frankly, do support that, because at the end of the day, what ends up happening is you do have a competitive market. People will debate that and say, well, if you have tariffs, it's really the consumer that actually absorbs the cost of it. But frankly, what ends up happening is a lot of these countries, especially if you're manufacturing back home, ultimately end up either lowering the prices or wanting to still be in the American market. And so I actually think it's going to be a good thing net. We do have to work our way out of debt in this country. And so as a result of that, I think that we do have to, start making sure that we are empowering business owners here in the United States, that we are making it affordable again to own homes, that we are bolstering the economy. And that all happens through, again, renegotiating our trade deals, American energy independence, but also to ensuring that Americans have tax cuts. And so as you heard with President Trump, he's going to be signing into law taxes on tips. We want to end that. Ending taxes on Social Security, and then also to ending taxes on overtime. And so for a lot of Americans, especially those that have gig worker jobs, that is a huge deal. And so I've been very proud to co-sponsor every single piece of that legislation.
You and I have had many conversations in the past term, and you were not afraid to work across the aisle on issues that matter to you. But as you said, Republicans do have the juggernaut, the House, the Senate, and the White House. Will you continue to work across the aisle on certain issues? What will that look like?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I've actually already started on that legislation. So we have legislation that's been introduced, $15 billion of additional FEMA funds specifically and only for Americans. As you know, there was a lot of controversy out of the White House, and rightfully so. FEMA got caught discriminating against Republicans and conservatives in regards to FEMA assistance. And then they also got caught giving $1.01 billion to illegal immigrants, which is completely unacceptable. So my bipartisan legislation actually is for specifically Americans and those impacted by both Hurricane Helene and Milton. Also, too, I have bipartisan legislation that I think actually really does stand a shot of getting past this cycle, and that's going to be to cap student loan interest at 3%. I personally don't have student loans, but I sympathize with Americans that do, and I think it's wrong that people will work their entire lives to pay off interest. It seems like indentured servitude, and I don't think that that should stand. And then the other piece of legislation that really mainly affects House members, but that is to allow female members to vote. And so I'm actually actively engaged in conversations and talks with Speaker Johnson in regards to allowing female members only to vote by proxy without establishing a quorum, so thus in line with the Constitution. I didn't know if you know this, and I know we had talked about maternity last time, but female members cannot vote if they're recovering from childbirth. And as any woman will tell you that has given birth, a lot of times we can't travel, and there's a massive recovery process, and so that is still underway.